Hey, what's going on there, folks? Good afternoon. It is the weekend out here, and this is the Earthmaster here on this Saturday, March 18th, 2023. It's about 1:31 here along the West Coast p.m. in the state of California. Wow, what a bunch of earthquake activity ramping up over the last 24 hours. The latest quake here shows a 2.3, also 2.7 into the region of Turkey. But broad-scale activity has been taking place all over the place, literally. So let's go ahead and look at what's going on out here on this beautiful planet. By the way, we did have some space debris entering into Northern California last night. I didn't get a chance to see it, but it made its rounds all over social media. If you guys did happen to see that last night, wondering what it is, whether it's a meteorite or an asteroid or who knows what, aliens. Basically what it is at that speed, and the videos, from what I can tell there, it appears to be some type of space junk. Could be an old satellite, you name it. There's a lot of space junk up there, and the way that it slowly descended from the sky there, it was seen from Redding down to Sacramento, I guess up into Oregon and Nevada as well. That tells me that it's way up there into the atmosphere. But the slowness of it obviously was not an asteroid or a meteor. Those things would be here like that within a second. So space junk it was. All right, looking at, and I missed it. I mean, I'd love to see something like that going across the sky, but I was inside. All right, looking at earthquake activity, 6.8. They've upgraded that 6.7 this morning. They're in Ecuador. 65 kilometers deep into the Ecuador Trench. It is around a fairly populated area. They did put out a little summary on it, and you can see the Did-You-Feel-It reports are filling in a little bit. The pager system has been elevated to an orange, meaning that further economic losses and possible fatalities were observed from that earthquake. The Tectonic Summary here occurred as a result of oblique faulting at an intermediate depth, approximately 66 kilometers beneath the Earth's surface near the subduction zone of the Nazca and the South American plates. That's going to be the Nazca plate right here, South America plate. General plate movement here in this area shows the arrows pointing down into the subduction zone, with relative South American plate movement to the north here. But this area has been awfully active. Remember, around the Middle America Trench, we've seen quite a bit of swarming. But yesterday was odd. We didn't see hardly any earthquake activity across South America. But it looks as though things are in adjustment phase right now. Let's see, how many windows can I have open today? 30 of them? 40? There's a few up there. We'll get rid of them. So it looks as though the faulty mechanism and depth suggests the event may have occurred within the subducted lithosphere of the Nazca plate. Well, that's obvious. It's a subduction zone. Here is the slip rate. Look at that. That's quite high, but not quite as high as the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. Either way, that's still quite a bit of accumulated slip rate in a year time, 73 mm. Earthquakes in Ecuador and most of the western South America are caused by the strains generated by the ongoing subduction there between the Nazca and the South American plate. Better known as, again, the Peru-Chile Trench or the Ecuador Trench there. The depth of this earthquake places near the upper end of what are termed intermediate depth earthquakes, with depths between 70 and 300. Okay, we don't want to go through all that. Large earthquakes are obviously common in Ecuador. In the past century, 32 earthquakes, M6.0 and larger, have occurred within 250 kilometers of this event. Looks like there was a 7.8 on the same subduction zone interface. 300 kilometers to the north resulted in, that was a 7.8 back in 2016. So we know earthquakes of considerable size can happen out there in the South America region. Any subduction zone, and the subduction zones are all over the place, folks. They're all over the world. We have them up here in the Pacific Northwest, about northern California, up to the Queen Charlotte Sound area. That includes Washington, Oregon, Vancouver Island ranges. That's a Cascadia subduction zone. Then you got the Aleutian Trench here, where these two arrows are pointing. major accumulated slip rate builder up here. In fact, the further west you go here on the subduction zone and this area right here are the highest in the world in terms of accumulated slip rate. You got the backing here of the North American, the Eurasia Plate, and the Pacific Plate, all kind of crunching the Kurokamachaca Trench area and the Japan Trench. Of course, we know back in 2011 that very large 9-pointer earthquake there off the coast of Japan created quite the newsworthy event there and a large tsunami. So this is why I'm concerned here with the Kurokamachaca Trench. I always mention that because we really haven't seen any large-scale event activity out there in quite a while. All right, so looking at what's taken place since this morning, I like to look and see, maybe what's been adjusted. This earthquake struck at 10:12 in the a.m. Right about that time, we've seen some adjustment up here into the California area, and it looks as though these earthquakes that I was talking about are legit. We actually had a 3.6 prior to that earthquake down in Ecuador earlier. This was looks like about 20 minutes or so prior to the large earthquake in Ecuador. This 3.6 in the Salton Sea, and we did have some further adjustment following that 6.7 with another 3.4 in the same spot, and more recently a 1.6. So these earthquakes have definitely been reviewed by a seismologist, and they are legit. That one's still automatic, but I know one of these here has been reviewed. I better have, reviewed right here, because I just checked it. It'd be kind of fishy if it went back to automatic. And it looks like a few folks did report feeling that earthquake around the Salton Sea area. So that tells me right there the West Coast is still potentially very possibly could see some earthquake activity here with this ongoing movement of wide-scale activity around the Pacific Plate and adjacent plates down here with the Nazca and the South America region. So definitely still be on guard with this movement. Looking over here to the west, there's a little swarming activity here across the San Jacinto Fault Zone. Not abnormal. So we'll watch this for some further movement here if it starts to increase. But this activity, right off the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault is something we don't want to see. Technically, it's not within that triggering zone that a lot of geologists speak of and seismologists when they're reviewing earthquakes and the potential to trigger big ones. As far as in relation to swarms go or nearby earthquake activity. I think Lucy Jones here says that needs to be within a mile or 2 or 3 miles, I think, to possibly maybe considered in the swarming or the triggering area. This activity, roughly about maybe 5 miles or so, 6 miles from this activity. We've seen swarms in the past up here on the Brawley seismic zone and further down south, but it's been a while. It's been a while since we've had a little swarming activity. So with this in mind, with this adjustment following the large-scale activity down south, and of course all the movement here along the Middle America Trench is not showing it here, but there is some further swarming up north here of the Middle America Trench into the, there's a fracture zone that runs through here. Notice the mounds, or so to speak, these folds indicating the divergent boundaries out here, kind of a separation of the seafloor. A lot of fracture zones up here through the Gulf of California. But that's been quite active. Looks like I had quite a few yesterday and some today on the Earthquake 3D globe here. There is some of that, but let me bring back the couple days or so. You can kind of see activity right around the Costa Rica area northward along the Middle America Trench showing height and movement here. What do we got coming in right now? 5.0. Stand by here for a second. Go back to the last 24 hours. Got some further activity ramping up down here in South America. Look at that. Let's go over here to the Chile station and see if we can find that. Looks like that's going to be the signature of that earthquake. Not a big one, but yeah, 5.0 coming in to the area. Yellowstone showing some adjustment there. We'll check that out here in a second. 5.0 coming in, not being listed up here on the USGS model yet. It takes them a little bit, but eventually they get around to it. So this is going to be reported by the EMSC model, European model, looks like it's been downgraded to a 4.8. But coming in here within the last 10 minutes to the Chile area at 72 kilometers deep. So that tells me right there, heightened pressure still exists out here along the eastern Pacific. You know, one may not think that adjustment can take place here. Say, for example, we get that earthquake activity here in Ecuador. Well, California is too far away. There's no way that can affect California. Yes, it can. It absolutely can. It's been proven that earthquakes thousands of miles away can trigger swarms and also subsequent adjustment along the plate or other plates, like far as nearby plates, such as the Nazca and the Cocos plate. There was a large earthquake up in Alaska a few years ago, which triggered an earthquake swarm in Yellowstone. So it's there. Got to remember these pieces of the puzzle are all just moving around and getting the separation of the seafloor out here and the divergent boundaries, and it's all in constant motion. We're moving, right? I think we are. You may not feel it, but we're definitely spinning, right? This Earth is spinning, so we need to realize that these plates are always in motion, and when things take place down here, we could see adjustment anywhere. Up north, further to the northeast here around the Caribbean plate, a little bit of pressure here may temporarily relieve stress in the region, but also apply further stress in not only nearby faults, but also nearby plate boundaries or far away plate boundaries. It's just common sense out here. So that movement looks like it is starting to turn down here to the south along the Peru-Chile Trench, but that does not mean that we shouldn't watch the areas up north here with California. We'll see what USGS comes up with as far as the magnitude. They're actually still reporting a 5.0 there from the EMSC, even though on their page it shows a 4.8 when you click on it. So a little odd. But, well, now we're back to 5.0. Making me look crazy out here. But, yeah, 88 kilometers deep, 5.0. Chile area, that's into the Peru-Chile Trench a little bit. So we'll continue to watch down there. We'll get to New Zealand here in a little bit. That's been quite active yesterday and still quite active today. We'll check it out here in a minute. Ridgecrest area, pretty quiet. One earthquake here off the San Simeon Fault, 1.0. That one coming in within the last hour. Nothing big, but still a little bit of movement. Long Valley Supervolcano, 1.6, about 7.8 kilometers deep there. Still getting a little swarming out here across the area of the Fish Lake Valley Fault Zone. And it triggered that earthquake watch due to, well, a couple different regions. Not only this little specific earthquake swarm, which had about 77 earthquakes. That's a lot, right, for one little specific area. But there was a couple different regions that we were watching here. We had swarming out here across this region where we're still seeing some activity today, San Simeon Fault. And then also noticeable increasing activity here across the San Jacinto Fault Zone with little separate swarms here in between the Elsinore Fault and the San Jacinto Fault Zone. So it looks like, actually almost looks like there was some activity. Sometimes they add these quakes after the fact, so we don't even know until we look back on the last 7 days or so. But it looks as though there was some previous earthquake activity up here much closer to the San Andreas Fault. That was on the 14th. So about 4 days ago or so. Again, they add these on after the fact. It's just, goodness, pretty important to monitor what's going on here across the southern end of the San Andreas Fault. These swarms could give us a good indicator of, potentially seeing that big one out here along the Southern California area. So with all these movement of swarms and earthquakes, that's why the earthquake watch was listed there for a couple days. And I took that down this morning. Sure enough, things start firing back up again up here. So we'll continue to watch this for some further movement. Northern California, see if we had anything since... Yeah, we had 2 earthquakes here, roughly after the 6.8 down there in the Ecuador area. These are from, excuse me, from after that earthquake. Let me grab a drink here real quick. Nothing quite like carbonated water. All right, 2.3, 2.2. These are somewhat deep. That's associated with the Cascadia subduction zone right here, the megathrust area. Not uncommon to see swarms up here, but still, it's been quite active. Let me see what the tremor map was like last night. I don't even remember if I checked it. There's nothing being listed there from yesterday on the tremor. So I'm not for sure if they're having a moment where they're not reporting tremor again. But I find that kind of hard to believe considering the earthquake activity we're seeing there. Nothing over the past week, it looks like. What's going on? A little on the strange side. All right. They've done that before for a month. And then come to find out that the PNSN network, they had some errors with their data system. Didn't tell anybody. But they had some issues. And then they went ahead and added a bunch of tremor later on after they got their system fixed. So I'm kind of curious to see if that's what's going on again there. Yellowstone. Okay, let's see Yellowstone here real quick. I know we got a little bit of activity kicking up there. We did have a swarm within the last week or so, mostly confined here to the northwest corner of the park. There is the 6.8 earthquake showing up on the Yellowstone stations. Yes, these seismograph stations do pick it up. Should see what a 9.0 looks like on here. Pretty crazy. So, yeah, 6.8 showing up there from Ecuador on Yellowstone, Wyoming. Previous to that, a little bit, a handful of small earthquakes. Following that earthquake activity, it looks like maybe that swarm is continuing slightly. Does not look like it's elevated too much. But, yeah, there's definitely a handful of earthquakes here around the northwest corner of the park. But this earthquake, notice that showed up pretty nicely across the majority of the properly tuned stations. Old Faithful, I don't know. Maybe they tone it down so that we can't see the geyser activity there. But look at that, nothing showing up. You could probably have a meteor strike out here and it won't even show anything. So I don't like it when these things are all toned down and squashed as far as the data goes. But maybe there's a reason behind it, right? This station went offline following that 6.8 earthquake there, oddly enough, around the Moose Creek, Idaho area. But, yeah, that's it for Yellowstone. Let's see. Let me get rid of some of these windows here. There we go. Eastern portion of the country. Not seeing anything major going on there. A couple small earthquakes around the Texas area. And it looks like one outside of Pecos, Texas. Of course, we all know what's out there, right? Last 7 days of activity. We can go last 30 days of activity here around the Texas area, and we all know what's out there. Western Texas, a lot of desert, right? Well, a lot of oil and pumping operations as well, including some wastewater disposal facilities. Those are those little ponds out here. Those are not swimming pools. These are tanks. They got to do something with the wastewater, right? So there's a whole process involved in ejecting that down below. But, yeah. All right, moving on. So watch this activity here along this plate boundary today, considering broad-scale activity across the area. Caribbean plate, not a whole lot going on here today. Looks like 10 earthquakes, mostly around the Puerto Rico, southwestern edge of Puerto Rico here in our swarm area. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. Not a whole lot popping off there today. And, of course, earthquake activity around Turkey will continue for quite a while. That's obvious. It's going to continue following those large events there. A few weeks ago there in Turkey, they're still trying to clean up. And occasionally we'll get these 4s and quite a few 3s, as noted here on the Earthquake 3D globe, and some 2s. Occasionally we'll get a 5 in there as well. Not uncommon. But for the most part, if you look, there's not a whole lot of earthquake activity out here across the Mediterranean today. Some 3s and 2s closer to the Turkey area, but that's about it. One earthquake down here into, is that South Africa? Let me double check here. Oh, they're probably not going to show that. So let's double check. It looks like 3.2 into, South Africa. Yes, 10 kilometers deep. Coming in 1905 UTC time. 1905 is going to be, when was that? A couple hours ago. Here's Barrett again. This is Southern California. Notice a little bit of spiky activity there, indicating some further movement there in Southern California. So, gotta watch that. Definitely gotta watch SoCal. It's only a matter of time, right? It's only a matter of time before we see the big one out there. The question is when? When? All right. Let's check out areas here around the Java Trench. It looks pretty quiet. Got a 3, a 2.5, some other smaller quakes here towards Indonesia area. And last night, this movement up here, actually this was from, we had a deep earthquake yesterday, 392 kilometers deep there into the Izu Trench, right? Izu Trench, the plate movement here goes from east to west. This is a major subduction zone here down to the Mariana Trench. Following deeper activity, it's always noted, subsequent shallower earthquake activity. In this case, we had 2 of them just upstream with a 4.4 and a 4.8 hours later. But still, nonetheless, those earthquakes came to be. One earthquake up here along the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench. This is pretty much our major watch zone for some big earthquake activity. It's been building up strain for quite a while, and again, it's reinforced by many large plates. So the accumulated slip rate here, I can't remember exactly what it is. I got to figure that out, but I know it's elevated, and might be a cool idea to add the average slip rate here on this map. I think I may do that. Have to draw this in, but it'd be kind of cool to point out. Either way, you guys can see all the arrows pointing towards this area. It doesn't take hundreds of years to build up a lot of strain for a mega quake in this area, and it's been quiet, and just in general terms of earthquake activity. Up here along the Alaska area, still got these volcanoes up here making a little noise underground, but that's about it. No major changes noted there across the area. Big island of Hawaii, looks like the Pahala area still showing some movement as normal. One earthquake up here around Mauna Kea, 2.4, about 2 o'clock this morning, 20 kilometers deep. Aside from that, looks very typical down there. Our hot spot of earthquake activity here over the past couple days has been lined up in New Zealand. They had a swarm of earthquake activity, including some 5s up here around the North Island, New Zealand. Looks like they're still getting some movement here as listed on the Earthquake 3D globe. It's kind of hard to see, so let's go over here to the GeoNet servers, and they're the folks that monitor the earthquake activity down into the New Zealand region. And these are the seismograph stations with location here across North and South Island. And the majority of those quakes are from yesterday, so they're getting ready to drop off the map here. But as you can see on this station right here, we've still had some earthquake activity here over the past few hours. Doesn't look like they are as big as what we've seen there yesterday, but there's still earthquake activity, and that tells me that there's still a reason to watch the New Zealand area. 3.4, 6 hours ago. Let me bring up all magnitudes here, and these guys are going to report some of the smaller quakes that may not show up on the graph. So looks like they're still having a pretty good swarm up there with some 1s. There's a deleted 3.0, 3.1 roughly within that same area, although a little bit further north and deep, 210 kilometers deep there. I believe that's associated with the northern end of the Hikurangi or the southern end of the Kermadec Trench. Some 2s and 1s, and another 3.2 in that same area. So things are still rather active here, folks, across the New Zealand area. Quite a few 2s and 3s and 1s. And again, I'm a little uncertain as to what is the cause of it. Looking at some of the earthquake activity here, though, let me go back here, leads me to believe that this is nothing more than general plate stress out here. We were watching this earthquake swarm up here around the Bay of Plenty, North Island, New Zealand area. But if you think about this, over the past, has it been over 7 days? It has, so let's go 30 days, 4.5. It's only going to show some of these bigger ones. But we've seen general earthquake activity kind of ramping up, specifically in and around the New Zealand area. And I know this is a pretty good swarm of movement up here, but I think it's all just in relation to the general plate dynamics here across the area, which could tell us that there's increased heightened activity or potential for some larger activity here across New Zealand. Of course, we got the Hikurangi subduction zone here, the Alpine Fault, many other different fault systems that run through here that are capable. and some say are well overdue for some big earthquakes. So again, I think it's all this activity is just in relation to the general plate stress out here. There's some volcanoes out here, some ancient volcanoes in the area that haven't shown any elevated activity in, well, quite a long time. I think this one here was back in 300 BCE, so that's quite a bit of time. I can't remember the exact name of it. It's kind of a fun one to pronounce. But this swarm is occurring very close to it, and again, there's a lot more earthquake activity than what the USGS is showing here. But the depth of these earthquakes are down there. I was mentioning last night, maybe this is relation to the massive flooding and the rainwater that they've received here over the past couple months, right? Sometimes those can get down there and activate old faults, or maybe it could be geothermal activity down there hitting some hot spots and creating some geothermal type earthquakes. But that depth there, some of these depths are way down there, 7 kilometers or so. So I firmly believe that this is all nothing more than plate stress out here in the region, which is bad enough considering all the broad activity that's been taking place here across North South Island, New Zealand area, and the Kermadec Trench. Remember, we had that 7.0 up there. Has it been over 7 days? I don't think so. There we go. I had that 7-pointer. And all that stress and strain has to adjust down here, right? General plate movement tells us that. There's that subduction zone, Kermadec Trench, Tonga Trench. Hikurangi subduction zone sits right about here. So with the movement of the northwestward direction of the Pacific plate, it has to adjust down here across New Zealand. So I think that's what we're seeing there. But still, just be on guard with the elevated earthquake activity that we're seeing in that region. Let's see what we got. Those are from yesterday. Some of those deeper quakes there into the Fiji area. Remember, the wider rings here is a 3.2, 3.3 that we've seen there around North Island that was mentioned on the GeoNet servers. The majority of these are from yesterday, some older quakes, but still, pressure still does appear to be building out here along the New Zealand area, with I'd say the brunt of the activity out here across areas of the eastern Pacific plate and the adjacent plates here, the Nazca and the Cocos plate up here north of the area. So that's just a lot of activity, folks, here across South America right now. Quite a bit. All right, moving on. Still no earthquake there. That was shown up here on the Earthquake 3D Globe from the USGS. I believe that was a 5-pointer, right? According to the EMSC. Let's see here. Oh, man, it's just very active. Goodness. So we'll watch this throughout the day today, folks. Again, keep an eye on Southern Cal. Definitely looks like it wants to light up here. Let's see what else. We got one earthquake way up here north into Alaska. That one coming in prior to the earthquake activity down in Ecuador this morning. I like to look at the map here, kind of see what's been taking place, before large earthquakes and after they occur, and get a good indication sometimes of where some motion and some plate movement could be going. But in this case, it almost looks like it wants to head up north here along the North American plate. So keep an eye on that. All right, what else do we have here? Space weather activity as we head over to the Solar Ham site. Looks like you put out a little notification there. Made him reach his goal, which is cool. Congratulations there, Kevin. Solarham.net. Really useful site for space weather activity. All right, so what do we have here? Dwindling activity, it looks like, far as solar flare movement goes. Not really seeing too much activity there on the sun. We do have a new sunspot, though. Going to welcome 3256 to the party. Let's see what's going on here. Are we working? Are we still live? Double check here. Looks like it. That was a little slow. Not for sure what was going on there. I know Kevin did have some issues there with his site a couple months back with some hackers. All right, welcoming the new sunspot out here on the Earth-facing side of the sun. Looks very dramatic here. A lot of intermixing of the colors, and it's got a huge trail of other sunspots behind it. So this could be a very interesting sunspot in the coming days. Again, that's 3256. Does look like it's getting geared up to maybe produce some significant flares. Right now, 95% chance for a C flare, M flare at 25, X flare around 1. We'll definitely keep that sunspot in mind. Not for sure what's going on, because it's definitely not, there we go. Definitely not my internet. It appears to be maybe the SDO site. There it is again. You can kind of see some of the magnetic structures there across the area. Continue to watch that. Definitely. Could be a rather interesting next week or so. No major coronal holes currently facing us. We do have coronal hole. This big, huge area down here is kind of facing towards the south of the Earth-Sun plane. So I'm not for sure if we're going to get any effects from that, number 86. But we'll continue to watch that as that develops and faces the Earth a little bit more squared on. But for now, green across the board. Green means no auroras for you folks up there. Very minimal chance at all of seeing those at the higher latitudes. All right, weather. Getting into the West Coast weather. You know, it's hard to believe. It's actually hard to believe that it's almost April. March 18th, 2023. Literally almost April, folks. And it doesn't feel like it, at least for me anyway. Maybe for other people, you know, around the country. But here in California, we have had one heck of a winter with lots of rain, lots of snow. And that is great, excellent news for all of us, you know, for the farmers, for the people that like to enjoy the, you know, the recreation at our lakes. It should be nice and full this year, hopefully. I may actually venture up to the lake and do some fishing. I don't know. It's been a while. I haven't fished in probably a good 10 years or so. Just no water out here in the lakes. All right, so weather. Well, we have more rain coming. That's why this winter seems like it's never ending. And I can't believe it's April. Almost April. So it looks like tonight and tomorrow we're getting a little bit more rainfall. Nothing as substantial as what we've seen back in January. And, of course, earlier this month where we had quite a bit of rainfall. Goodness, and flooding again. So rain coming in tonight and tomorrow. Before that, after that, a little break on Tuesday, it looks like, early morning. But then again, on Tuesday night into Wednesday, we're getting some further rainfall and some snow. This one aimed mostly into central and southern California. So you guys are getting some further rainfall. Much needed at that, but also at the same time, watch these fault systems down there. I think it takes a couple months to maybe soak down in there, maybe, but we've gotten a lot of rain, so we'll watch these faults in Southern Cal and the West Coast and see if anything takes place from all this rainfall. Kind of lubricates the faults a little bit. So after this storm system there on Tuesday and the Wednesday, looks like things starting to switch up a little bit, getting the direction here out the northwest, indicating some colder storm systems, snow, but less rainfall here in the Sacramento Valley area. And after that, we got this guy building up here. Notice that high pressure, trying to keep the storms up to the north, and it looks like it wants to. But again, this is a ways out. This is about the first week of April. Still looks rather cold and wet for the Pacific Northwest. Northern California just getting a clipping of each storm system, which sometimes that's the normal here for our California winters. All the rain and snow goes up north and we just get barely clipped. This year it's been completely different. But it kind of looks like that's the models. They're kind of forecasting that towards the first week of April. Again, this is a ways out. We'll continue to watch that and update it. It could change. But either way, rain tonight, rain tomorrow. And pretty good storm there, it looks like, in Tuesday into Wednesday. And, yeah, that's what we have to look forward to. Some further rain, just making everything greener. I got a jungle of a backyard right now, not even joking. I was looking at the National data buoy center out here for New Zealand, and I noticed that it's lacking buoys out here along the Kermadec Trench and New Zealand area. There's only 2 out here, and that's not really in an area that we would want to watch. We would want to watch areas here along the Kermadec Trench and, of course, the Hikurangi subduction zone. I can't seem to find anything that would indicate like a working buoy out here. I've searched through the majority of these sites here that Google recommends, but I can't find anything. If you guys down in New Zealand happen to have a buoy monitoring website, that monitors maybe buoys out here around the New Zealand area, send them to me. earthmastermail@gmail.com. I'm kind of curious. I'd like to know why this isn't covered out here. I think it should be. All other areas around the Pacific are indeed covered except for down here. So maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there is, and I just haven't seen it yet. But I would like to get my hands on that for just for reference. It's kind of good to have. All right, guys. I think that's about it. There's that earthquake USGS reporting downgrade from a 5.0 to a 4.6. Either way, still some earthquake activity, right? Definitely on a broad scale. Ramping up out here between the South American plate, North American plate. Be on guard, folks. Stay safe. We'll chat you guys a little bit later on this evening. Enjoy your weekend.